I slammed the truck door hard enough to rattle the side mirror. I wasn't even supposed to be home yet. My return was 2 days early. A storm warning in Oregon had grounded my flight last minute, so I hit the road and drove through the night. As I turned onto the long dirt path leading to my ranch and my land, I saw something so unbelievable, it knocked the air right out of my lungs. Bright balloons were tied to the white fence. Cars were scattered across the grass in my grass. And right there, blocking my driveway, was a fold-out table topped with a clipboard and a cash box. Folding chairs were arranged in rows, all facing a makeshift platform built from wooden grates. People were seated, watching a man in a suit who held a microphone, and standing right beside him, smiling like she ruled the world, was hero Karen. Karen, the HOA president, who had been a relentless pain in my life ever since I moved to the quiet outskirts of Amber Ridge 5 years ago. Her hair, bleached to an unnatural blonde, was stacked high like she was on her way to the Kentucky Derby. Massive sunglasses covered most of her face, but that smug expression of hers was unmistakable. Worse yet, behind her on my front porch, stood a sign in bold black print, "Live Property Auction 8 a Day Only." I froze. My chest tightened, heart racing. That wasn't just some signa, it was an actual crime unfolding right in front of me. And then she saw me. I had barely stepped out of the truck, boots crunching the gravel, when our eyes locked. Her grin vanished, her jaw dropped, she muttered something to the man with the mic, then stormed down the porch steps in a fury, marching straight toward me. "You're not supposed to be here," she hissed, like I was the trespasser. I blinked. "Excuse me? This is my ranch." She took a step back, hand to her chest like I just slapped her. "This is HOA property now," she said loudly, catching the attention of a few people in the crowd. "We tried to contact you. You abandoned the land. It's being auctioned." My hands curled into fists. "I've been gone 5 days, Karen. 5, and my land isn't part of your HOA." She didn't budge. Instead, she whipped out her phone and dialed 911. "What's your emergency?" I could faintly hear the operator on the other end. "Yes," Karen said, voice trembling with fake panic. "There's a man here. He's threatening people at the auction. I don't feel safe." She held eye contact with me the whole time she lied. My mouth dropped open. Was this actually happening? She was calling the cops on me for standing on my own property? Then I heard them. Sirens in the distance, getting closer. And in that moment, I understood. This wasn't a mix-up. It wasn't some misunderstanding. This was war. Let me take you back to how this all began. My name's Daniel Carter. I'm 42, a quiet man who enjoys fixing tractors, raising cattle, and drinking coffee on a porch as the sun rises. I served 15 years in the Air Force before retiring early and using my savings to buy a modest 20-acre ranch just outside Amber Ridge, Texas. I've never been a fan of HOAs. That's why I intentionally bought property outside their reach. I did my homework, double-checked zoning maps, hired a lawyer, the whole deal. My land was clearly marked as non-HOA. That was a big part of the appeal. But Karen had other ideas. Karen Peterson had ruled over the Amber Ridge HOA for over a decade. Her husband, Tom, was barely ever around, and she pretty much ran the entire neighborhood like her own little kingdom. She handed out violation notices like Halloween candy and treated every newcomer as a potential threat. When I first moved in, she showed up on my doorstep with cookies and a clipboard. "These are the HOA rules," she said sweetly. "Just sign here to acknowledge." I smiled. "Thanks, but my ranch isn't part of the HOA." Her smile tightened. "I see. Well, that can change." I thought she was joking. She wasn't. At first, it was minor annoyance. Letters saying I needed to submit repair requests for HOA review, notices on my gate demanding I repaint the barn to match their neutral color scheme. Once, she even left a pamphlet on my windshield titled "Why All Homeowners Should Join the HOA for Your Protection." I ignored her, stayed polite, waved when I saw her Range Rover pass by. But she kept pushing. One afternoon, I caught her snooping around near my chicken coop. I asked what she was doing, and she claimed she was checking for zoning violations. I told her to leave. She muttered something about me endangering neighborhood standards and stomped off. Still, I never imagined she'd go this far. A week before the auction fiasco, I'd gone to Oregon to help my sister recover from surgery. I made sure the ranch was locked up, Had my ranch hand, Mark, checking every other day. Everything seemed fine, until I came home early and found an auction happening on my front porch. Apparently, that short trip was all the opportunity Karen needed. The weirdest part? No calls, no emails, no letters, not a single warning, just an auction. Back at the scene, I tried reasoning with the auctioneer. "This is a mistake," I said. "This is my land. My name is on the deed." I showed him my ID. "This woman has no legal right to be here." He looked uneasy, a nervous man with slicked back hair. He raised his hands. "I was hired to sell a foreclosed property. I was given the paperwork." "Let me see it," I said. He hesitated. "You'll need to speak with the HOA office," the auctioneer said cautiously. I answered slowly and clearly, "I'm not part of your HOA." Before he could respond, two police cruisers pulled up, blue and red lights washing over the fence posts and flashing across my face. And Karina of Corsi rushed to greet them like they were her private security detail. "Oh, thank goodness you're here," she said, full of fake urgency, pointing straight at me. "That man is trespassing." One of the officers stepped toward me. "Sir, we're going to need you to step aside." "You've got to be kidding me," I muttered. Then the taller officer looked closer at my ID, brows furrowing. "Wait," he said, glancing down at the clipboard he held. "Your name's Daniel Carter?" "Yes." Karen told us the owner had disappeared, that the property was abandoned. "She lied," I said, my voice rising. "I've only been gone for 5 days." Karen jumped in, cutting me off. "Officer, he's making threats." He yelled at me and tried to interfere with a lawful HOA auction. The cop looked uncertain. "We'll need to verify property records." Karen's voice rose in pitch. "He's been aggressive before." I stepped forward. "Don't even start. You're the trespasser here. You either forged documents or worse, and now you're selling off my land." The officer looked from me to Karen, clearly conflicted. "We'll need both of you to come down to the station," the crowd murmured behind us. Some potential buyers looked confused and uneasy. A few backed away. Others stared like they were watching a live drama unfold. And then just when I thought it couldn't spiral any further, Mark, my ranch hand, came sprinting from the back pasture. He waved a manila envelope above his head as he shouted, "I found this near the office." Everyone turned. He handed it to me, breathless. I tore it open and what I saw made my stomach drop. Inside was a forged power of attorney with my signature faked in ink. Karen had planned this. If this had fallen into the wrong hands, she could have actually sold off my home and my land and my entire life. I held the document up for the officers to see. "You still think I'm the criminal here?" The shorter officer took the paper, scanned it quickly, and then turned to Karen. "Ma'am, where did you get this?" Karen's mouth opened slightly, but nothing came out. And then a third cruiser pulled up, this one from the sheriff's department. The real storm had just arrived. "Before we continue, tell me where you're watching this from. I'd love to know." Drop your city or state in the comments below, because trust me, this is just heating up. The door of the sheriff's cruiser opened, and out stepped Sheriff Doyle with his slow, deliberate gait. The man wasn't one to be rushed. Tall, built like a linebacker, with a deep Texas drawl and sharp eyes that didn't miss a thing. I'd met him a few times before. He'd even helped me take care of a wild hog that busted into my feed shed last year. When he saw me standing between two patrol officers, surrounded by a crowd of auction attendees and Karen clutching her clipboard like it was a weapon, he took one long look and said, "What in God's name is going on here?" I pointed straight at Karen. "She called 911 on me for being on my property. She tried to auction off my ranch. And now we've found forged documents." Doyle narrowed his eyes at Karen. "That true?" Karen tried to act unfazed, but a flicker of panic betrayed her. "Sheriff, I am the HOA president," she said, smoothing her voice. "The property appeared abandoned, and our board proceeded with an emergency reclamation and sale. We followed the correct procedure." He turned fully toward her. "Karen, I know every inch of this county. This ranch isn't under your HOA, you know that. And reclamation? You're not a government agency." Karen's tone sharpened. "We have legal channels for these situations and yet," Doyle interrupted, You didn't go through the courthouse. You went through a microphone. He took the forged document from the deputy and held it up. And where exactly did this piece of fiction come from? Karen went silent. Too silent. Doyle turned to the officers. Clear everyone off this property. The auction's over. And keep her here. We're going to have a little conversation down at the station. Karen burst out, her voice shrill. This is a mistake. He's lying. You're all just taking his side because he's a man. The crowd was already beginning to disperse, murmuring in disbelief. The auctioneer hurriedly packed up his things, doing his best to fade into the background. And just when I thought the worst was over, boom, a loud crash echoed from behind the house. The crowd jumped, some gasped, others froze. Stay back! The sheriff barked, taking off around the side of the ranch. I followed close behind. What we saw made my heart sink and my jaw fall open. My rear storage barn, the one where I kept extra fencing, fuel, and emergency supplies, was on fire. Bright orange flames roared up from the roof. Flames licked up the side of the tin roof, thick smoke twisting into the bright blue sky. Mark shouted, "Someone lit it." I saw two kids running behind the tree line. I sprinted toward the barn instinctively, but Sheriff Doyle grabbed my arm. Let the fire team handle it. The next 15 minutes were chaos. A neighbor pulled a hose from his truck, and Mark started using the water tank in his pickup. Thankfully, the fire hadn't reached the main house, and the wind was in our favor, but the damage was done. The barn wasn't just scorched, it was gutted. By the time the fire trucks rolled in, all that was left was a charred skeleton of twisted metal and blackened beams. Doyle turned to Karen, who now stood stiffly in the yard, arms crossed, her face flushed red. "You've got more explaining to do," he said. "And I pray to God your name isn't anywhere near this." Karen didn't say a word. She just stared at the smoke, silent. Once the fire was extinguished and the fire chief filed his report, we gathered out front. Doyle leaned close and spoke low. "Dan, something bigger is going on." "That fake power of attorney?" "It was too detailed. Someone had access to your personal files." "My documents are locked," I told him, "unless she had a key or help." That's when it hit me. A few weeks before I'd left for Oregon, I'd hired a temp through a local ad to help organize old tax papers and invoices. His name was Kyle. Young, quiet, respectful. Said he was taking time off from college. I paid him cash under the table. No red flags until now. What if Kyle had been working with Karen? I told Doyle everything I remembered. He jotted it down. "I'll look into him," he said. "But right now, I need to take Karen in for questioning." "You sure you'll be okay here alone tonight?" I nodded firmly. "Let her try to come back. She's not stepping foot on this land again." Karen didn't resist as they cuffed her, though she loudly declared, "This is harassment." While being led to the cruiser, once the vehicles pulled away, the ranch finally fell quiet. Mark stuck around to help clean up the wreckage. By sunset, most of the broken furniture and auction debris had been piled into a growing trash heap. "I can't believe she almost pulled it off," Mark muttered. I stared out toward the field. "She would be a broken bar if I hadn't come home early." The sun dipped behind the tree line, casting a deep orange glow across the ranch, of the same ranch I had bled for, sweated for, built with every cent I had. But in my gut, I knew it wasn't over. Karen might be in custody, but if she had help, or worse, if someone else was calling the shots, I still wasn't safe. That night, I sat on the porch with a cup of black coffee, the air still tinged with smoke. That's when I saw it. A light flickered on in the barn office. No one was supposed to be in there. My heart pounded. I stood, grabbed a flashlight, and made my way across the dark field. The office door creaked open, and there he was, sitting at my desk, files spread out. My laptop open. Was Kyle. The temp. He looked up, startled. "Mr. Cartera, I can explain." Then I saw it. A folder labeled Land Transfer Strategy open on the desk beside him. I didn't say a word. I just stood there in the doorway, flashlight in one hand, my other twitching at my side. Kyle looked like a raccoon caught mid-escape, frozen. His hoodie was half-zipped, and sweat poured down his face despite the cold night air. "Mr. Carter," he said again, rising slowly, "please just let me explain." "Sit down." My voice was cold, sharp. He dropped into the chair like his knees had buckled. I stepped inside, eyes scanning the table. My file less personal documents, land deeds, old survey maps, digital copies of my IDA were all out. My stomach twisted. "You broke into my locked cabinet," I said, voice low. "Only way in was with my spare key. One I never gave you." Kyle swallowed hard. "Karen said it was authorized. She told me you'd hired her as a consultant. She gave me the key and said she was expanding HOA territory. I thought it was legal." "You thought forging my name was legal?" I snapped. He didn't answer, just buried his face in his hands. "She promised me $5,000, he whispered. "Said once the sale went through, I'd get PDA and she'd get me a full-time job with the HOA." I laughed bitterly. "A job? Doing what? Helping her steal land from more veterans?" "I didn't know you were a vet," he muttered. "That doesn't matter," I shot back. "You didn't care who you were stealing from." He stayed silent, shame written all over his face. "You helped fake an auction. You forged documents. You accessed things no one had the right to touch. Do you even understand the weight of what you've done?" His voice cracked. "I do now. I messed up. I didn't think it would go this far." I exhaled slowly. "I should call Sheriff Doyle right now." "Please," Kyle begged, voice rising. "Please don't." "I'll do anything to make it right. I'll testify. I have proof." Texts, emails, even voice recordings. "Karen sent everything. I kept it all in case she screwed me over." That stopped me. "You kept what?" He spun the laptop toward me and opened a folder titled HOA Deal. Inside, screenshots, voice memos, emails directly from Karen. Some even included threats. He clicked on one voice memo. "Make sure you get his signature scanned. If he finds out too soon, it's over. I need that fake deed ready by Friday." I stared at the screen. My heart was still pounding, but now, it was for a different reason. We had her cold, hard evidence, all in this kid's folder, but I wasn't ready to back up every single file to a USB. I said flatly, "You were going to hand them to Doyle yourself and no excuses." Kyle nodded quickly, panicked. Yes, I'll do it. I'll meet him in the morning. Whatever you need." I crossed my arms. "You're not staying here." He stood up immediately. "Understood." I walked him out, watched him drive off into the night, then went into lockdown mode. Every door was double locked, every window checked. I even secured the barns and tool sheds before heading back inside. It was nearly 3 a.m. when I finally sat down at the kitchen table. An old photo of my dad caught my eye. He was the one who taught me everything I knew about land, about working for what's yours. I could still hear his voice. "A man who doesn't protect his ground doesn't deserve to stand on it." Karen may have been in cuffs, but I knew she wasn't done. She had money, influence, and a whole HOA board wrapped around her finger. And Kyle? He may have flipped, but I wasn't about to let my guard down. At sunrise, the sound of pounding at the front gate jolted me awake. I slipped on my boots and stepped out onto the porch. 2 black SUVs sat parked just outside my property. I didn't recognize either. Standing just behind the gate was a man in a tailored suit, holding a briefcase and flanked by 2 others who looked like they'd never touched a shovel in their lives. He gave a shallow wave. "Mr. Carter, I'm Evan Thomas, a legal counsel for the Amber Ridge Homeowners Association. I'd like a word." I stayed right where I was. "About what?" He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "About the auction." Karen may have overstepped, but the HOA board was under the impression the land was in limbo. Her office informed us that the property had been abandoned and had defaulted on its municipal upkeep. I scoffed. "First of all, I pay my taxes. Second, this land isn't even under your HOA." He nodded politely. "We've seen the maps, but that's debatable. A land realignment was filed 2 months ago. It may change the boundaries." My eyes narrowed. "You've got to be kidding." "I'm not," he said smoothly. "And depending on how the court rules on Karen's actions, the board may still pursue limited ownership under communal neighborhood expansion guidelines." That word ownership ignited something in me. "You came out here to intimidate me, try to get me to back off." He raised a hand like I was being unreasonable. "No, not at all. I'm offering a peaceful resolution. No lawsuits, no headlines. Perhaps a buyout to something west of here, less complicated." I stepped off the porch and walked up to the gate, slowly. "Tell Karen she can buy herself a new pair of sunglasses from jail." "But this land," I pointed to the grass, the trees, The dirt beneath our feet. This land is not for sale. Evan's plastic smile finally cracked. He turned, got in the SUV, and they drove off without another word. That's when I knew, this wasn't just Karen. The entire HOA board might be involved. I was turning to go back inside when I heard the growl of an engine. Mark came speeding down the driveway on his ATV, a flyer flapping in his hand. "Dana, you're not going to believe this." "What now?" He handed me the paper. I read it aloud. HOA emergency session. Vote to approve full claim to disputed ranch property. Tuesday, 6 p.m. Amber Ridge Clubhouse. They weren't done. Not even close. After everything, the Amber Ridge HOA was planning to vote to seize my land. "This is real?" I asked, barely containing my disbelief. Mark nodded grimly. "Found it taped to the bulletin board outside the gas station." Then I passed Karen's house. Her husband Tom was stapling them to fence posts. Of course, Karen might be behind bars, but her husband was out there still doing her dirty work. "And people are already talking," Mark added. "Down at the feed store, some folks are saying you did abandon the place." That part hit hard. After 5 years of living quietly here, helping neighbors with their repairs, showing up to community meetings when invited, even donating after last spring's tornado, some still believed her lies. I clenched my jaw. "I need a plan." Mark raised an eyebrow. "You really going to show up to that meeting?" "It'll be you versus a room full of people who probably already made up their minds." I looked down at the flyer, then back toward the field. "Let them try to stare me down," I said. "If they want to vote out Broken Bar, I'll show them what real ownership looks like." For the next 48 hours, I prepared. I printed maps, tax records, historical deeds of photos, videos, anything that could prove the truth. I'd found the footage, original land survey scans, time-stamped and irrefutable. My property boundaries were clearly marked, well outside the HOA's reach. To my surprise, Kyle kept his word. He handed over every file to Sheriff Doyle and submitted a written statement, laying out how Karen had manipulated him into forging documents. Doyle said it was enough to press formal charges, but court proceedings would take time, weeks, maybe longer. And that vote? That was scheduled for Tuesday at 6 p.m. If I wasn't ready, they could push through some bogus emergency claim. It wouldn't hold up in court, but it'd tangle everything in red tape for months or possibly years. I wasn't about to let that happen. Tuesday evening came faster than I expected. Mark and I drove together, pulling into the Amber Ridge Clubhouse parking lot at 5:58 p.m. The place looked like a community fair. SUVs, golf carts, lawn chairs, people treating this like a social event. Inside, it was standing room only. Dozens of residents, board members, and even a couple of lawyers filled the room. At the long table, pitchers of lemonade sat next to neatly stacked papers. At the head of the table was Tom Peterson, Karen's husband. He had the same smug grin she did, just none of the Polish. His shirt was a size too small, and he tapped a gavel like he'd been waiting his whole life for that moment. "We'll begin with item 1, he announced smoothly. "HOA claim to adjacent property listed under Daniel Carter." The room fell quiet. "Before you vote," I said, stepping forward, "I'd like to say a few words." Tom looked annoyed. "This isn't HOA meeting, Mr. Carter. You're not a registered member. You're voting on my land," I said firmly. "I have a right to respond." He hesitated. There were murmurs in the crowd. "Let him speak," someone said. "Yeah, he deserves to defend himself," added another. Tom rolled his eyes. "Fine, 5 minutes." I stepped to the front and held up a thick binder. "I'm not part of your HOA, never have been. This ranch," I flipped to the map, "has been outside your jurisdiction since your HOA was created." I turned the page. "Here's the zoning record, county seal, tax records of payments made directly to the county, not Amber Ridge." More nods from the crowd. "This," I said, flipping again, "is a copy of my deed, signed by the previous owner." Then I clicked the remote. Behind me, a projector flickered to life, showing security footage. "And this is video from 3 days ago. Your HOA president, Karen Peterson, attempting to auction off my land using forged documents." Gasps rippled through the room. "She's been arrested," I added. "And we have sworn testimony that one of your board members helped her." All eyes shifted to Tom. He squirmed in his seat. "If you still think you have the right to vote on land that doesn't belong to you," I said, slamming the binder on the table, Then I'll see every single one of you in court. Silence, until a voice called from the back, Tom, is this true? Another followed. Karen said he abandoned it. But if he's got all this proof of broken bar, why are we even here? Tom tried to maintain control. The HOA bylaws allow us to reclaim neglected land. It wasn't neglected, I barked. I was gone 5 days helping my sister recover from surgery. That's not neglect if that's called being human. The room erupted. Some folks shouted at the board. Others defended Karen. A few looked completely confused. But one thing was clear: Tom had lost the room. Then he snapped. You think you are better than the rest of us cause you got a ranch? Tom yelled. Because you served in the military? You don't follow our rules. You never did. I stared him down. You're right, I said. I don't follow your rules. I follow the law. Tom slammed the gavel over and over, trying to restore order. But it was too late. Someone stood and shouted, I move to cancel the vote. Another voice rang out, I move to remove Tom Peterson from the board. He knew what Karen was doing. Chaos. I turned to leave. Mark chuckled beside me. You really lit the place on fire. Not yet, I muttered, but maybe soon. We pulled back into the ranch just after 8 p.m. The tide had turned, but I didn't let myself relax. Then my phone buzzed. Sheriff Doyle. Dan, he said, his voice tense. You still at home? Just got back. I need you to listen carefully. Karen made bail 20 minutes ago. I tensed. What? She used her sister's account. We just got word she's headed in your direction. My mouth went dry. Mark saw my face pale. What's wrong? He whispered. I covered the receiver. She's coming here. Back on the line. I said. You sending someone? We're already en route. Doyle said. Don't engage her. Just stay inside. But it was too late. Headlights cut through the tree line. A black Range Rover barreled down the ranch road, tires kicking up dust and gravel. It skidded to a halt just feet from the porch, headlights flooding the deck in blinding white. Mark and I ducked behind the porch posts as the engine roared. Then the door flew open. Karen stepped out, still wearing the wrinkled designer blazer from the auction and now stained, her hair a mess, eyes wild. In one hand, she clutched a folder and waved it like a weapon. I knew you were behind this. She screamed. You think you've won? This isn't over, Mark whispered urgently. We should stay inside. Like Doyle's the broken bar, but I was done hiding. I stepped out from behind the porch post and walked slowly down the steps, meeting her head on. Karen, you need to leave, right now, I said firmly. The sheriff's already on his way. She didn't flinch. She marched closer with that same wild defiance burning in her eyes. Oh, I know, she said, voice sharp. I called him myself. You assaulted me, Dan. You trespassed on official HOA business. You and your little friend here, you're both going to jail. I stared at her, stunned. You broke into my property. You tried to sell my land. You forged documents. And I'm the criminal? She shoved a folder at me, waving it like it held some final trump card. This is a new claim, she spat. I filed it an hour ago at the county office. Emergency injunction. This land is now under HOA review until the court decides. I didn't take the folder. I didn't have TOA because right then, red and blue lights lit up the front field like a Christmas display. 3 sheriff cruisers and a county vehicle rolled in behind her Range Rover. Karen turned. Her smug confidence evaporated in seconds. Sheriff Doyle stepped out first, followed by Deputy Martinez and another officer I didn't recognize. He didn't waste a second. Karen Peterson, Doyle barked. Step away from Mr. Carter. Hands where I can see them. Karen took a step back. Sheriff, I'm the victim here. He and that boy, Kylie, they tricked me. They forged my signature. I'm pressing charges. Doyle didn't even acknowledge the rand. We've reviewed the documents of your computer files. Kyle's statement. Metadata traces everything back to you. Karen's lips quivered. That's not possible. That can't be. We also have audio. Doyle continued calmly. Voice memos of you directing someone to create forged deeds, plus multiple bank transfers, and that injunction you just filed? He held up his phone, flagged and rejected. Already, no, a broken bar, she whispered, inching toward her car. You're all lying. Doyle signaled the deputies. Place her under arrest. This time no bail. Karen screamed. You can't do this. I built this community. I made this place beautiful. I protected you. But the officers had her restrained and were reading her rights as she thrashed and kicked. I'll sue every one of you, she shouted. You'll see, this isn't over. They shoved her into the cruiser. The door slammed shut. Silence settled again over the ranch. Sheriff Doyle walked up to me with a tired sigh. She's looking at multiple charges now, he said. Fraud, attempted property theft, filing false claims, tampering with county records. Could be serious time. I nodded. She won't be back. He glanced toward the dark silhouette of the barn. Just in case, he said, upgrade your security. Some of her allies might still try something. I already installed cameras out back, I replied. Doyle smiled faintly. Good, smart move. Then, turning to Mark, he added, you two watch your backs. We stood silently on the porch as the cruisers pulled away, their lights fading into the distance. Karen was finally gone, or so we thought. The next morning, the sun crept slow and golden over the fields. I brewed 2 mugs of strong coffee and handed one to Mark. For the first time in days, the world felt calm. You think that's the end of it? Mark asked. I took a long sip. It better be. But peace didn't last. A notification pinged on my phone, an email from the county land office. The subject line stopped me cold. Urgent response requested, a claim filed on Ranch Access Road. I frowned and opened it. Apparently, an unnamed home member had filed a new claim, and not on the ranch itself this time, but on the easement road leading to it. They were arguing the road had originally been part of the HOA's common property and was never formally transferred during the last sale. If the claim went through a broken bar, it would cut off my only access to the county road. My land would be landlocked. I stared at the screen, my mouth dry. They're trying again, I muttered. Mark looked up. What now? I didn't answer right away. My mind was racing. They're not coming for the ranch this time, I said finally. They're coming for the road. I sat frozen on the porch, coffee forgotten, watching the morning light stretch across a land I might no longer be able to reach. I gripped the phone like it might explode in my hand. The HOA had just pivoted and no longer attacking the ranch directly, but now claiming ownership of the easement road that connected my property to the public highway. Without that road, I'd be cut off completely. No tractors, no feed deliveries, no emergency access. My land would be all but stranded. They're playing dirty, I muttered. Mark leaned over my shoulder, scanning the email. That road's been here longer than the HOA itself. Exactly, I said. But now they're trying to argue it was never formally transferred with the property. They claim it still belongs to Amber Ridge. My jaw clenched. First Karen, now the board. It never ends. But I wasn't about to let them win. Not like this. That afternoon, I drove straight to the county office with everything I had: deeds, maps, old tax records, even faded photographs of the previous owner, Everett Malone, building the gravel road with his grandsons decades ago. The road had been carved into the land by his own hands. At the records desk, Mrs. Hampton, a sharp-eyed clerk with silver hair and a no-nonsense air, adjusted her glasses as I dropped the thick binder on the counter. This should be everything, I told her. The road was part of the original parcel. Karen and the HOA have no claim to it. She clicked through her computer and pulled up the most recent filing. I see a petition from the HOA, she said, filed by board member Stacy Mullins. She's requesting an emergency review of the easement, citing historical community use. I laughed dryly. You mean the same people who tried to sell my home last week? That community usage? Mrs. Hampton nodded. I'll escalate this to the zoning board. Boot to broken bar. You might want to contact a property attorney, just in case. I already have, I said. I didn't waste a minute. I called Angela Burkia, a Firecracker land dispute attorney based in Houston. We'd met at a seminar years ago, and I'd kept her card ever since, just in case. After I laid out the situation, she whistled low. They're trying to choke you out without ever touching the house, she said. Classic move. Can they win? They could if they get 3 things: historic use records, a lazy county board, and a neighbor willing to lie. I exhaled. Yeehaw, broken bar. I've got a few of those. Then we bring ammo, Angela said. And she got to work fast subpoenaing HOA filings, retrieving blueprints from Everett Malone's estate, and digging up 30-year-old county survey maps that proved the easement had never been public property. But just when I thought things were starting to turn my way, a broken bar the night brought another surprise. While reviewing camera footage from the new security system, I saw something that made my skin crawl. 1:42 a.m., a hooded figure crept slowly up the gravel road toward the gate. He didn't break in, he didn't even touch the fence. Instead, he planted a sign in the dirt and walked away. I froze the video. Zoomed in. Private road, HOA property. Trespassers will be prosecuted. My blood boiled. They were testing me, trying to intimidate me, stir fear, create confusion about who owned what. But this time, I had more than my word. I had footage, timestamps, a physical sign installed illegally. I called Angela right away. I've got something, I told her. By morning, she'd already filed a cease and desist letter to the Amber Ridge HOA board, submitted a harassment complaint, and requested a temporary injunction to freeze any further HOA actions against my ranch. Later that day, Sheriff Doyle showed up. "You know who planted the sign?" he asked. I nodded and played the footage for him. "That's Ben Pritchard, HOA treasurer." Doyle gave a low whistle. "He's got a rap sheet. Misdemeanors mostly, but this, planting fake signage on someone else's property, that's criminal misrepresentation." We walked together down the gravel road. He snapped a photo of the sign, then yanked it from the ground. "Keep this," he said. "Could help in court." Later that week, Angela arranged a private meeting with the county surveyor and the head of the zoning board. We met beside the gravel road, surrounded by old maps and the buzz of a drone overhead. "This road," Angela said, tapping a spot on the survey, "was built and maintained by the Malone family for over 40 years. It was included in the parcel transfer when Daniel purchased the ranch." The county official nodded slowly. "And you've got tax records showing he's been maintaining it since?" "I do," I said, handing over receipts for gravel, drainage, and snow clearance. "Then it's yours," the official said. "That road is your property." Angela grinned. "Then file it." An hour later, it was official. The road was legally recognized as private property of mine. The HOA had lost again, but they didn't take the loss quietly. That evening, Mark and I were checking fencing near the west side of the property when we heard it. A loud bang, then another. We dropped everything and ran. Smoke. The shed behind my workshop, is the one that held tools and spare fencing wire, was on fire. Again. Mark grabbed the hose. I bolted for the extinguisher, but just like last time, the flames tore through it too fast, too easily, like it had been helped. By the time we got it under control, half the structure was gone, and spray painted across the wall in thick black letters were 3 words: "Sell or burn." I stood in the ashes, chest heaving, the smell of scorched wood clinging to my skin. This wasn't about property anymore. This was war. The air was thick with smoke and fury. My fists clenched at my sides as I stared at the message scrawled across the blackened wall. "Sell or burn." The spray paint was still fresh. The threat couldn't have been clearer. This wasn't vandalism. This was criminal intimidation. Mark stood beside me, breathing hard, his jeans streaked with ash. "They're not going to stop, are they?" I shook my head slowly. "Not until they either own this ranch, a broken bar, or destroy it." We called the sheriff immediately. Within the hour, Sheriff Doyle arrived with a fire marshal and a crime scene tech. They photographed everything: of footprints, scorched metal, the burned-out shell of the shed, and the message that turned a land dispute into something darker. Doyle's jaw tightened the moment he saw the graffiti. "They want to play arson now?" he said. "All right, no more warnings. This just went felony." The fire marshal stepped forward. "We found signs of an accelerant. This wasn't random. It was intentional." I glanced toward the trees at the edge of the property, the same area Kyle had seen figures running after the first fire. How many of them were still out there, watching, waiting? Doyle turned to me. "You've got cameras now, right?" "Yeah," I said. "And this time a broken bar, I caught them." His brows lifted. "You did?" I led him into the house and pulled up the footage. Just after midnight, the motion sensors had triggered. There it was, clear as day, a hooded figure dragging a red gas can, crouching behind the shed, striking a match. Then, for just 1 second, the arsonist turned toward the camera, a face, recognizable. "Ben Pritchard." Again, I paused the footage. "That's your guy." Doyle let out a low whistle. "HOA treasurer, Karen's right-hand man, Angela, my attorney, arrived a few hours later. We showed her the video, the crime scene photos, the signatures, the threats. She didn't blink. "I'm filing a restraining order against every board member who's had contact with you," she said, "and I'm pushing for criminal charges, not just against Benna but against the HOA as a corporate entity. They enabled all of this." I nodded. "Let's take them down." Over the next 2 weeks, Angela launched a legal barrage. She filed suits for fraud, harassment, arson, property theft, and forgery. She demanded a full audit of the HOA's finances and communications. She subpoenaed internal memos and meeting records. The pressure broke them. HOA members began resigning, some quietly, others under public scrutiny. Karen, still sitting in jail awaiting trial, was hit with 5 more felony charges. Ben Pritchard was arrested and denied bail. And Tom Peterson, Karen's husband, was caught red-handed on a neighbor's Ring camera trying to shred HOA documents in his garage. Angela leaked everything to the local press. By the end of the month, the headline ran, "HOA board implodes amid ranch scandal and arson investigation." Suddenly, the community saw the truth. Neighbors began showing up at my door offering apologies, casseroles, extra lumber. Some came with paintbrushes to help restore fences. Others brought tools to rebuild the shed. For the first time in weeks, I felt the tide turning. The same people who once watched from a distance were now standing beside me. Then came the final court hearing. Angela and I stood in a packed courtroom as the judge reviewed the evidence. The ruling was swift and scathing. The ranch's easement was officially declared private property. The auction was ruled fraudulent. Karen's forged documents were entered into the record, and the HOA's petition for annexation was permanently dismissed. The judge didn't mince words. "In all my years," he said, "I've never seen such a blatant abuse of power by a homeowners association. This was not governance. This was harassment." Outside the courthouse, reporters surrounded us. I gave one brief statement. "I didn't fight this hard just for me," I said. "I fought so no one else in this county gets bullied out of their home." Angela patted my back. "You did good, Dan." Life slowly returned to normal on the ranch. The fields turned green again. The shed rebuilt with Mark's help and supplies donated by neighbors stood taller than the old one. The cameras stayed up, and at the front gate, I posted a new sign, "Private ranch not HOA property. Trespassers will be prosecuted. Owner, Daniel Carter, a U.S. veteran." And beneath that, in smaller letters, "We don't sell, we don't run." Mark chuckled when I put it up. "Think that'll scare them off?" I looked out across the land I nearly lost. Then I smiled. "It's not meant to scare," I said. "It's a reminder that you can't steal what someone built with grit and sweat, that titles don't make you powerful, a truth does, and that even when everyone else runs, one man standing firm is stronger than a dozen trying to take what's his." So if you're ever driving down Route 9 near Amber Ridge, and you pass a white fence with a sign that reads, "We don't sell, we don't run," you'll know exactly whose land you're looking at, and you'll know the HOA learned the hard way. Never mess with the wrong rancher.